The champagne flute slipped from my fingers the second her words hit me. You'll be seated at the back, Lisa. Brian's parents think it would be better that way. It wasn't just the clink of glass on marble that shattered the air, it was the years I'd carried her weight, her future, her dreams, and now, I was an inconvenience. The polite murmur of the rehearsal dinner dissolved into a silence too sharp to breathe through. Dozens of heads turned. Brian's father looked directly at me, his smirk confirming what I'd started to fear ever since I walked into this chandelier-lit theater of arrogance. I wasn't just unwanted. I was a tolerated embarrassment. Summer's eyes, my sister, my blood, darted in panic between me and her future in-laws. She looked like a child again for a split second. But then, she looked away. I forced a breath and said the only words I could summon without breaking, I understand. I'm sorry about the glass. I knelt down to gather the shards, my fingers trembling, my knees aching against the polished floor. Around me floated designer gowns and tailored suits, people whose shoes cost more than my entire wardrobe. As I reached for a particularly jagged piece, I saw Brian's father approaching. He crouched, far too close, the smell of his overpowering cologne suffocating me as he whispered low enough for only me to hear, "Let the staff handle that. Someone of your background should know where they belong." It wasn't the first insult. Not even the worst one. But something about it, the quiet venom, the smug calm, felt like a knife in the soul. My name is Olivia. I'm 32. And I spent half my life building a future for my sister. This is the story of how I finally built one for myself. 3 months before that dinner, summer had already begun slipping away. Phone calls that used to last hours turned into clip texts. She avoided talking about wedding planning. Anytime I asked to meet Brian's parents properly, she'd brush it off. They're just traditional, she'd said. They want things a certain way. What she meant, and what I didn't realize until a one and only family dinner, was that their way didn't include me. I remember it so clearly. The way Brian's mother sipped her soup like it might poison her. She looked at me with the kind of detached politeness you reserve for someone who smells faintly of sweat. "We understand you raised Summer after your mother's unfortunate passing," she'd said, stirring her ball with surgical precision. "But now she'll have proper guidance. A real family." I felt Peter's hand tighten around mine under the white linen tablecloth. My husband of 2 years, calm, steady, intuitive, had warned me. "They may not welcome you, Olivia," he'd said. "They come from a different world." I'd brushed it off. Naively. "They're just protective of their son. They'll warm up." They didn't. After the champagne incident, I locked myself in the hotel bathroom, scrubbing at the stained dress with a bar of hotel soap, my hands shaking too violently to be useful. Peter found me like that. He leaned against the doorframe, arms folded, voice gentle. "We should leave," he said. "Summer will understand." But she wouldn't. I knew it then. And she proved it moments later. She pulled me aside just outside the ballroom, her whisper urgent. "Please don't make this difficult," she said. "They're investing in our company. This is my future." And I was, what? A relic? That girl I had walked to school in the rain. The girl I stayed up late helping with math homework while working 2 jobs. The girl whose business idea I'd bankrolled from my savings. She looked through me. Like I was furniture from another life. I swallowed the grief. Smiled. Nodded. "Of course. I don't want to interfere." The next morning, As I got ready in the hotel mirror, Peter stood behind me adjusting his tie. I was wearing the same dress, now dry but wrinkled. My makeup kit lay open like a battlefield. "You don't have to do this," he said gently. I paused, looking at my reflection. "Yes, I do," he sighed. "Sometimes being there means knowing when to step back." "Not today," I replied. "Today it means showing up." The ceremony was a performance of perfection. The kind that only obscene wealth can buy. I sat in the back row like I was told. Watched Summer glide down the aisle in a custom gown that sparkled under stained glass light. She looked radiant. Truly happy. And I felt something strange, pride. Even after everything. Even seated behind strangers. At the reception, I stayed in the corner, near the gift table, sipping a single glass of champagne. Peter had gone to fetch food. That's when Harold Westfield found me. He brought 2 men with him, men with square jaws and watch faces bigger than their hearts. "Quite the presence," he said, scanning the room like he owned it. "Different from what you're used to, I imagine." I forced a smile. "Everything is lovely. Summer looks happy. She does, now that she's part of a proper family." He looked me up and down like I was a misplaced coat. "Your presence," he said coldly, "is ruining the mood. Please leave." My heart pounded. I'm the bride's sister. And yet so different. He smirked. "We tolerated your attendance at the ceremony. That should be enough." One of the men chuckled. "Staff entrance is through the kitchen. In case you're confused." I opened my mouth to respond. But I didn't need to. The waiter from the rehearsal dinner, the one who had seen it all, approached with a tray. His eyes met mine for half a second. Then, like divine intervention, he tripped. The entire tray of champagne flutes crashed into Harold's tailored tux. Liquid gold soaked through thousands of dollars of imported fabric. Gasps. Laughter. Shouting. And I walked away, silent, smiling, unseen. In the car, tears streamed down my face. "I failed her," I whispered. Her designer purse clutched like a lifeline. Gone was the haughty woman. She looked worn. "May I sit?" she asked. I gestured to the chair. "Your husband's company is calling in our loan," she said. "Peter's company follows policy," I replied evenly. "If you're having difficulty, perhaps your financial advisor." "Don't play games," she snapped. "This is personal." I leaned forward. "No. This is business. Something your family claimed to understand better than me." She flushed. "Is this your way of teaching us what it feels like to struggle?" I paused. Looked her in the eye. "No. This is my way of protecting our business. You gambled with power you didn't have. You leveraged a name. But you forgot, names don't pay debts. I'll speak to your husband. He doesn't handle client relations anymore." I smiled. "I do. I let her stew in that. Then I offered her a deal. A restructuring. A stake cut. A 5-year recovery plan. And a way to stay in the industry through Summer's success." She didn't thank me. She just signed. I called Summer and Brian to a meeting at a quiet downtown restaurant. Neutral ground. Summer looked nervous. "Why are we here, Lisa?" "It's about your company," I said. "Peter's firm wants to invest." Brian's jaw clenched. "What?" "Your business plan is strong," I continued. "With the right support, it could disrupt your entire sector, including the one your parents used to dominate. Summer's hands shook. How do you know all this? I've followed your company since day one, I said. Remember when I asked for your business plan last year? I paid attention. Even when you didn't. Why? She whispered. After everything we. Because that's what real family does. Brian said, my parents won't like this. They already agreed, I said simply. It was this, or bankruptcy. We finalized details. They left with the contract in hand. Summer paused before exiting. Turned. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry, she said. I should have stood up for you. I nodded. Yes. You should have. But now you have the chance to stand for something better. 6 months later, I sat in the back of a boardroom as Summer and Brian presented their first quarter results. Their company? Thriving. Westfield. Reduced. Rebuilt. Controlled. Harold sat silently at the end of the table. His eyes met mine. He nodded. Not warm. Not friendly. But respectful. That night, curled on the couch, I placed Peter's hand on my stomach. We may need to rethink the office setup soon, I whispered. He looked at me. Are you? I nodded. Just 8 weeks. But yes. His eyes flooded. He kissed my forehead. And I looked at the photo on our bookshelf, Summer, me, our mother between us. We were stronger than anyone ever gave us credit for. You know what the real revenge is? Not rage. Not shouting. It's rising. Quietly. Powerfully. And knowing you never needed their approval. Only your own. This was my story. And you won't hear one like it anywhere but here. Only on Karma Revenge.